Welcome to the Nerd Party.
Let the filibustering begin.
Welcome to Nerd Party.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Filibuster. I'm Phillip Gilfus, and I'm joined by the usual king of filibuster himself, Matt Hansen. Matt, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Doing all right. And, of course, every king needs a queen, and we have brought in our own, and that is directly from Charlotte, my friend and soon-to-be yours, Joanne Spataro. Joanne, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you?
How is life from the Queen City itself?
It's magical as always.
Oh, awesome. Well, I've brought this fine trio together because we're going to be talking about queer TV. Now, that may sound like a weird subject because what does that mean? I was told someone yesterday that's what we're going to talk about, and she's like, how do you define queer TV? And I said, that's a good question. I don't know how you define it, but we're just going to talk about it and see where it goes. I know, and I'm not belying my age. I assume I'm the oldest one in the trio here, but the first show I really watched that would fall under queer TV was Queer as Folk, and I'll talk about it here in a second. But just the different shows, whether ones I've discovered going forwards and things not even in the United States shows I've found have kind of been things I would fall under queer TV. But of course, there's sort of maybe quote unquote popular American TV shows out there who maybe, were groundbreaking, considering groundbreaking, even if they had one character, maybe it was the whole premise. And so, we can talk about any of those. I was just reading Entertainment Weekly 2 weeks ago because it was Pride Month, yay. And now we're all ashamed now. But anyway, I was reading, they kind of sort of did a little bit review, a little cute timeline that they would do in EW.
Right.
And so a lot of stuff I'd forgotten about. I was like, oh yes, that show did exist. I forgot about that. Ellen and all those different things, which seem so long ago, and of course they're not. But we'll get into all that here. So kind of the first show, like I said, I wanted to talk about because it was sort of my, as naive as it sounds, sort of eye-opening, and that's Queer as Folk. And I'm not talking about the American version because, of course, there's a UK version, as many TV shows begin their lives. But the American version started in 2003. And, of course, I guess for the fellow nerds, you'll know that the Queer as Folk UK showrunner and creator was Russell B. Davies of Doctor Who fame.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes, cool. Yes. But anyway, the American version, he was not necessarily involved in, but I'm sure he still got checks for it, was awesome, in my opinion. It was set in Pittsburgh, that gay capital of America, and was sort of a, I would call gay prominent show, in as much as the cast was mostly men. They did have sort of the token lesbian couple, but that was kind of cool because they had a child, and so that was sort of your quote unquote family. The characters, where all the rest were like guys in their 20s, going around Pittsburgh and all those different things, and you sort of had your different characters. And it reminds me of another show, which I'm sure we'll talk about, because there's a lot of characters that are very similar to another show. But anyway, but I thought it was pretty awesome. Of course, it's entirely made up because, Babylon is sort of their fictional, gay club in Pittsburgh, and you'll see it in the show, and it's like 3 stories tall, and all these foam parties and all these things.
I mean, I'm not saying that gay clubs can't be wild because I've been to plenty, but I have yet to find a gay club that looks like Babylon.
No, I would walk into some and be like, "What? This is sad and sucks. Where's Babylon, man?"
I mean, Babylon, if we're gonna be honest, is more like a club that's got married to a bathhouse and had an offspring.
Yes, and then you would go sort of in the back of Babylon, which apparently had a place just as large as the actual club, but it was just rows of steam and everything else. But I mean, I adore that show, and I mean, we could talk a whole filibuster about it, but I'll just kind of sum up here. It is on Netflix, by the way, for those who are interested. It is very Well, I was gonna say it's very explicit. I'll just say it's explicit. You can define your own very or not.
It was explicit enough.
Yeah, I was about to say. I mean, and for those listening, we're obviously not going to go crazy here on this episode, but obviously we're going to be talking about sex, so deal with it. But I think with Queer as Folk, obviously, I mean, it's on Showtime for one thing. But it was interesting because again, it all depends on what you know and what you're used to. But I think the biggest thing for queer TV, or at least for me, you had Liberty Street in Queer as Folk. Like, that was sort of the literal street where you had sort of the, rainbow flag diner, and, everyone could walk down that street, and that was the gayborhood and all that stuff. Again, I'm sure that really exists in Pittsburgh. But anyway, but this group of friends and actual family, because Michael was sort of the quote-unquote main character, and you sort of had his mother and uncle and all that stuff. But it was interesting to see all those people acting together is not something that I necessarily saw in my life. I didn't see, a gayborhood or anything, or these huge groups of like. And again, it's fictional, so I hesitate to say, like, this show shows you what it's like to be gay if you don't know. I don't know if that's true. But anyway, it was very interesting to see that.
I mean, you can never say it's like an exact representation, but I mean, I'll just say that having watched some of that show when I was growing up and discovering myself, that stereotypes exist for a reason.
Yes.
And so those archetypes do exist. They're just exaggerated to the nth degree for dramatic purposes. But it's not like it's entirely off the mark or they're making something up.
Right. And I guess, because this will maybe be different from another show I'll talk about later, but, like, it's guys in their 20s. And not all gay guys in their 20s are like that, but like you said, it's not, if you lived in a big city, whatever. But it is interesting because all the characters were different. And I guess, just to sort of wrap up here, I thought kind of the big things were the way it ended. Like, in other words, like, I could tell you everything that happened in Queer as Folk. It's not spoilers because it's a drama. It's all about how characters get there. But I thought it was interesting the way it ended on such a down note, because it was sort of like, I think there was like some sort of like anti-gay referendum going on in Pittsburgh or something like that. And the Lindsay and her wife, I'm blanking on her name, took their two sons and said, we're leaving Pittsburgh. We're done. We're going to Canada.
Right.
And, going to live a life where people, respect us or whatever. And it sort of ended on a down note. And I guess this was sort of, Bush era.
I was going to say, when did it go off the air?
2005 was the last date it aired.
2005? Yeah. So, I mean, we were only like 3 years away from Obama when things started to turn around, so it was right in that window.
Yeah, and it's interesting because I guess a question for me with Queer as Folk is, A, how dated would it seem? Because I started to rewatch it again, and it's fine, but it's interesting. Any TV series, even if it's like 4 years old, its situations can seem outdated. It's almost like, watching a show that doesn't have cell phones. You're like, well, the whole plots are different. It's like a show where gay marriage doesn't exist, or, as such as it was 10 years ago in America, and it's interesting about, like, the struggles and the things, obviously not that they don't exist anymore, but it's sort of just a different lens, this little time capsule of, like, is there still relevant stuff? And I think there is. Like I said, I love all the characters. There's Brian, who's obviously Brian. If you don't know the show, you'll know it. And though I think the only thing is I kind of want to get away from season 1, season 2, because the fact that sort of the sexy character who's Brian is dating a high schooler, that's... Yeah.
Not great.
Awkward, not great. So, though their relationship is interesting once it gets out of high school and not illegal anymore, they do have a very interesting relationship because of how they define each other. And as Justin, who's the younger one, becomes more assertive and more mature, they have a very interesting dynamic. But anyway, I've talked a lot. Any other feedback about Queer as Folk that any of y'all thought about?
I mean, I think I would like to go back and watch it on Netflix because, like I said, the only time I watched it was when it was online and back in the days when you got
Showtime weekends.
Right. Yes.
So when again starting to flower, discover my sexuality. This was around when I was in the end of middle school, going into high school. So 2005, that would have been my sophomore year. I watched a lot of it, but of course, as a 15-year-old, I hadn't had experiences yet. And now, being almost 30, I would like to go back and see if it still holds up for me, having not lived the exact life that the characters have, of course, but at least have my experience in the community.
So like just like Brian, are we gonna have like your black balloons and your funeral coffin for your 30th?
I'm trying. I mean, that's the funny thing is, this is total tangent, but I don't feel like I'm almost 30 until I try to do the things that I did when I was 20, and I can't do them anymore.
So, like, if we took the Queer as Folk test, are you a Michael? Like, do you want the what's his name? Like the comic book character that he made up. Like, just have that big poster in your room.
Yeah, I remember. I know what you're
Amazing
talking about,
Man or something. I can't remember.
Something like that. Yeah, cool. I think I identified with him the most, actually, from what I remembered of the episodes I watched, but I'll have to go back and see.
Well, I thought like the most, and again, we'll wrap it up here right now, but the most interesting things, because as far as like groundbreakingness, other than it's a show about, gay folks and they show sex and it's all, real and families and everything that's sort of reality, even in a fictionalized world of dramatic storytelling. But like, so Michael's two big boyfriends. He had sort of the older guy who he was interested in, and that was fine, whatever. But then his second boyfriend was HIV positive, and his mom was freaking the F out, of course. But it was interesting how that, how they worked that relationship, how she had to come over, because of course her brother ended up dying from AIDS, and so how she dealt with her son dating someone who HIV positive, and so I felt like it wasn't just sort of like, hey, it's a show where a lot of people have sex. It's sort of like we're trying to show everything. Not that they showed everything, but at least a lot of aspects that are on the spectrum. And so, like, if you're either in the world or you're growing up, and like you were, Matt, sort of kind of exposes you maybe to everything that could be out there.
Right. I mean, like, the sex was there, and I'm not gonna lie. When I was 15 years old, that's
part of the reason I was watching.
But no, they actually went through like real life events and real life struggles that was just punctuated with eroticism every now and then.
Mm.
As life should be.
Yes.
All right, Joanne, what's the next show you got for us?
I've got the L Word.
Girls in tight dresses who drag with mustaches, chicks driving fast on Janoos with long lashes, women who long love lust, women who give. This is the way, it's the way that we live.
Which has been in the news for us because it's coming back. It's coming back, which is funny because every once in a while I think about the show's characters, and I think about Bette and Tina's daughter Angelica, and I'm like, is she an adult now? I wonder what is she up to? And that's and I have to remind myself she's not a real person in like real life. But I'm very excited to see a reboot of the L Word. I've rewatched it a few times, but at this point, like, I need a Jenny edited version.
Now, having never watched the show, did they leave it off in a place where you could see it being rebooted or continuing?
Well, from what I've read, it looks like they're going to have new characters. And, like,
really? Okay.
Bette, Tina, Leisha Haley, and Kate Monahan will do, like, cameos and stuff. And hopefully Angelica will be back. But I don't know. I think it's hard to find a good lesbian show. I'll start right there. And so during my formative years, I was very much into the L Word as opposed to Queer as Folk. Yeah. I didn't relate to Queer as Folk, and I totally get why people liked it, but I was head over heels for the L Word. I related to Leisha Haley's character Alice because I was a writer, and she was super cute, and it showed me that I could, no matter, how I sort of dressed or whatever, like, I could express being a woman who likes women, and it was okay. So I know a lot of people say, well, a lot of them were really, like, well off, and they had these crazy opulent jobs and all that, and that's true. And I think the reboot, it would be great if they are a little bit more quote-unquote normal. But for me at the time, it was aspirational, right? Like, I mean, there was a lot of messaging when I was growing up where it's like, you're a loser if you're gay, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, or like, you can't do this, or you'll never get married, and you'll never fall in love, and people will never accept you. So to see Bet in this fabulous suit, and with the in-ground pool, and everybody's just looking shiny and fabulous, was good for me at that time.
Yeah, sort of as I say in my other podcast about one of my other co-hosts, That's So LA. So these are the sort of That's So LA lesbians. But I think it's interesting because I was thinking about this because I was watching sort of the reunion talk on that the L Word cast members had, and I was thinking about it, especially in the context of 21st century, when we deal with, thinking about how representation is with color and race and all that, and I was like, man, L Word wasn't. Wait a minute, it was good. I was like, wait a minute, they because I was like, they had, Bet, of course, is mixed race and had her sister and had her dealing with her father, and their relationship, and then you had Carmen. Oh man, she's smoking hot. Sorry, but anyway, Carmen.
We could just do a whole hour on Carmen.
Oh god, she is. But anyway, Puerto Rican or Hispanic, and then we sort of had Alice's girlfriend, blanking on her name, but the which was not that I have a problem with the character, but it was definitely interesting. Yeah, with she was a a soldier. Or officer, and had to deal with PTSD. I mean, she was black, that's sort of the person of color, and because you sort of saw their two worlds, because again, with like we said, it was sort of like these are the highfalutin lesbians, because with Tasha, you kind of saw at the end where she started going with folks that were a little bit maybe more like her, and so it was sort of interesting the clash of worlds between the two of them, but I still thought they like, even though people might critique, like you said, these are sort of like the high end people, you still saw intersecting cultures and worlds.
Yeah, but I think you saw different kinds of people. We could have definitely seen more, given that we were in LA, right? We could have seen a lot more characters of color there.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think the big thing this reboot needs to do is do right by trans women. And trans women of color, and trans men and non-binary people, because when they did, they had Max on the show as the trans man. The actor playing Max is gender fluid, but is not a trans man. And it was weird to watch the characters interact with Max. Like, they'd all at once be interested in Max's transition, and then all of a sudden they were like, oh, whatever, Max, like, get over it, buck up. And it was like, what's going on here? It was just sort of wrong. There was something dismissive about it. So I would love to see some great trans and non-binary characters in the reboot of the L Word.
Because I thought the interesting thing about Max, Myra, and then going to Max, was that, like, wasn't well, I was going to say he wasn't a good character. That's not fair. He was a very real, imperfect character. So there were times you would watch and be like, oh man, you're annoying is what I'll get out. But then you're like, but that's normal. I mean, it's a sort of normalization, I guess, right? It doesn't have to be an angelic character just because they're trying to, but yeah, of course it's associated with Jenny, so he was already poisoned.
You beat me to it. Yeah, just the idea of like Max and Jenny together. It's like, that's why I didn't like Max. Like, what are you doing with Jenny? Like, she's an absolute viper. It was, and I think they really handled, Max when he got pregnant, because he was, with that guy. Just, it was hard to separate whether it was a critique on society when they kept saying those transphobic things to him, especially Jenny, or they like meant it. Now, this isn't a queer show, but it made me think about it. The other night, I was watching that episode of Sex and the City where Samantha can't get any sleep, or she can't do it with some guy she's with because there were trans women of color on her street and they were being very loud. And I watched it with my girlfriend Laura, who's trans, and she was horrified by it, as was I, because it was like a time capsule of transphobia. She was like, is this like the worst, most transphobic thing I've ever seen? And it's like, yeah. So I sort of shuddered to rewatch the L Word and what happened with Max, because rewatching Sex and the City's episode about trans people was horrifying, and I know the L Word just sort of could have done a better job.
Mm. And to me, it was interesting, I mean, if we if I'm allowed to label that, is a lesbian show, but then you start like biting away, like for instance, I don't always get characters' names right, but Tina, bisexual. I don't know if I'm, because she's like, you find out the origin story was like Bet, quote unquote, seduced her from a guy, and because like you watch the show, you think like, oh, they're these, they have this child, or no, she's pregnant at the time, but anyway, they have this child. They must be like 100% like, lesbian family. And like, no, she's like a 2-year convert, or I'm just kidding.
Convert. And that whole freaking sequence when then like Tina goes with the guy is so mismanaged. It's like I'm cringing because I'm like, oh yeah, Bet's not great. You both have a terrible kind of relationship with each other, but you're meant to be. And then it's just mismanaged. Like she's bi and should be respected, and just not in the show.
Mm-hmm. And then I think, to me, it's always funny the parallels of like Elwood has the couple with the baby, like Queer as Folk has the lesbian couple with the baby, like that's the definite of the family people, and they both have partners who cheat as a storyline, which I think is funny. Actually, both end up cheating. Both partners end up cheating in a separate storyline. Spoilers. And then you have this sexy character Shane. Like to me, I think after watching Elwood, because I was bugging you the whole time, I know, Joanne, when I was watching it the other year. But like Shane to me is the best character. And I mean, I know she's a sexy character, so of course she's the best character. But like she is the best character. Like I feel like she should really be the main character of the show. I mean, I know it's supposed to be Bet and Tina, but Shane's awesome.
Well, like in a weird way, Shane was always really consistent.
Yeah.
With who he is. Like the whole time she's consistent. The only time she's not is when she goes off with Jenny in this horrible, like, no, don't do that. Leave her alone. And the camaraderie between Shane and Alice is so wonderful. And that's also because they're great friends off screen. Yeah, Shane was herself. She was total hottie. Loved her. Let's see. I liked Alice. I liked Alice and Dana, and this is sort of a mixed bag for people.
Yes.
Right? There are people who go, oh, well, no. It was always Alice and Tasha. That was what was meant to be. And then you get people who go, well, I mean, Dana and Alice are these kind of star-crossed lovers.
Well, I I'll always have the place in my heart because of Ginger's, that Dana and her sous chef. I mean,
Laura, yeah.
Yeah. Laura.
They were so cute. I feel like that was just a string of misunderstandings that broke them up, honestly.
Yeah. But it was funny. Not funny. It was actually sad where you said, Joanne, like how hard it is to find a lesbian show, because watching the, both the quotes and the EW article, and then watching the reunion, and I can't remember her name, the showrunner and creator, she was saying like, oh, when we were done, we're like, hey, you know what? We'll pass the baton, someone else to do something. And here it is, like, how many years later?
Yeah.
Tell me the other lesbian show that's been on, or shows that have been on,
Well, I can tell you, I mean, so the L Word ended in 2009. Mm-hmm. And then there was a show called Lip Service about lesbians in Glasgow, England. Mm-hmm. It only has 2 seasons. It's maybe a little bit more diverse than the L Word, like a tad. The storylines are good, but it's only 2 seasons. You can't really get into it. They also make a crucial mistake where they like kill off a major beloved character, right? Mm-hmm. Like for what purpose? They killed off Dana to raise awareness about breast cancer. I'm not sure if you knew that. But they killed one of the characters in Lip Service, and after that I was totally disinterested. And that show went on for a couple of years. And then for me, I've been trying to find pockets of like lesbianism or women loving women. You've got Wentworth Prison, which is in season 5 right now, started 2013, and there's some fun lady action there. And then you've got Orange is the New Black.
That's the one that came to mind, and I know that's not specifically lesbian per se, but
right.
You do have women on women action. I don't know if that qualifies it as a lesbian friendly show, but a couple of the characters really are. I mean, the characters aren't lesbian. Like what's her name? Donna from that '70s show plays.
Yeah. It's been slim pickings, so I am looking forward to the reboot, and I hope they are with the times and Oh, wait, we didn't even talk about how the L Word then turned into a reality series for a little while.
That's right. It was like the real L Word or something like that.
Yes, and it is like the
What
first.
was that?
It was. You tell me. It was like.
No, I never watched it, so I don't know. It's like, how did they turn it into a reality series?
So what they did is they basically went to different cities, and they'd have like the L Word New York or whatever it was, and follow these different lesbians around, and they had far more drama than you could ever imagine, and without the connections to real characters. They were just kind of crazy.
Oh, just a reality show. They vote up lesbians every week because that would have been anyway. So what about you, Matt? What's the show you got under Queer TV?
So it's kind of funny because, you know, I'm also a member of the LGBT community, obviously. But when I was growing up and finding myself, I would watch little bits and pieces of Queer as Folk, but I never had the compulsion to like seek out queer themed TV. I don't know why that was. I was discovering myself more because, like, you know, I would watch Aliens and then I would have like a crush on Michael Biehn. That's all. You know, one of the shows that obviously is pretty seminal and I'm a fan of, and like the L Word, it's another show that's coming back, and you know, we have to talk about Will and Grace.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Because that was the first, you know, aside from Ellen, which is also, I'll save Ellen for later, but aside from that, that was really one of the first times where people who were in the LGBT community, the characters at least, and actually Sean Hayes in real life, but people of in the LGBT community were given a show on network television. As far as I remember, I don't know if there's ever been one like that before.
I don't think so. I mean, because
even Ellen, that happened in Ellen came out in like the 4th season, and she had one more season after that, and that was it.
Right.
Yeah.
So this started with the intention of this is about focusing on, you know, a gay man and his best friend, and they're too wacky. What it was, how I discovered it. I think it was one of those times where, like, I think I was on vacation and I was in my hotel room and I was bored and just channel flipping, and then one of the episodes was on something like TBS, and I stopped to watch and I really started enjoying it, laughing at, getting the humor, because I think I discovered it when I was like junior year of high school. So like I understood the humor at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just something that I've enjoyed watching. It's not necessarily, you know, groundbreaking beyond the fact that, you know, it's a network show that put it in the mainstream, but you know, it's a good stress reliever. I'm looking forward to seeing what they can do when they come back. And you know, watching it now is kind of funny because I always saw myself in Will quite a bit, and now that I am going to be a lawyer, and that's basically who he was. Yeah, and having just gone through my first year of law school, I found my Grace. Like, she's like in law school. She's totally a spaz, kind of flighty, you know, has hard luck sometimes with relationships. So I'm not saying that like it's true to life for me, but like I'm starting to identify with it more. I'll say that much.
Mm. Yeah, like, and so because I never got into Will and Grace. I don't know. I'm not. And this is going to sound very bourgeois. Like, oh, I don't watch sitcoms, but like, I don't typically watch sitcoms. But whatever. I mean, it's not fine. People do. But like to me, it's like when I saw their I guess their test run. You know, when they had the little like election whatever vignette that came out. It was a little painful to me to watch, and maybe it's because it's just not my flavor. But I'm wondering how they're going to modernize it. And by this is me, and y'all can tell me if I'm wrong or crazy. You know, because Will was sort of, I don't know, neutered's not really the word I want to use, but you know what I mean. He wasn't really ever shown being gay on, you know, like.
Well, he had there was yes and no. I mean, it kind of started that way, but I think it was in season 5 or 6.
Mm-hmm.
He had a regular boyfriend that he ended up with at the end of the series.
Okay, cool.
So he did have a long-term relationship. Grace ended up getting married to Harry Connick Jr.
Ah.
And actually, the guy who Will ended up with is in a ton of stuff now. He's his name's Bobby Cannavale, and I think the one I could name offhand is, you saw Ant-Man, right?
Yeah.
He was the cop that Paul Rudd's ex-wife was married to.
Oh, well, I'd have to go back and see it, but okay. All right. Okay, cool.
But it did get it got more serialized. It got more, people had more arcs as it went on and found its footing. The election stuff, I think, was just written offhand in a day.
Right.
I don't think it was meant to be, because I watched it and I found it funny, but it really wasn't representative of the show as a whole. It was the tone of the show taken to the nth degree to fit into a 7-minute clip to get people talking.
Like a self-spoof almost.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So and then when I watched the trailer for them coming back, and that felt a little bit more genuine to what the show was, and so I'm looking forward to seeing how they can modernize it, because I mean, they went off the air in 2006. I mean, Bush hadn't even left office yet. There was no gay marriage. There was no, lots happened in 11 years. So I think this is as good a time as any for them to come back, and I think it'll be interesting. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, and a show I want to talk about, which is going to be funny because it's actually a sequel to something I've already mentioned, but I didn't know that when I saw it at the time. But this came out in what? I have to cheat up my notes here. 2015, and this is going to be a British show. It's called Cucumber, and it actually has a sister show called Banana. You can see where this is going. But anyway, and the third show is called Tofu. But anyway, that's not a joke. That's real. But anyway, the main show, it's actually from Russell T Davies again. And I didn't know, it's not really a Queer as Folk sequel, but apparently if you know the characters, because I've never seen the British one, you will see some references in it. But anyway, it's interesting because, as Queer as Folk American was all these 20-year-olds, Cucumber is like middle-aged gay men's show, and I so enjoyed it so much, and it was such a limited run, which the British are famous for, and it was so worse. It was a one run, like one series done, we're done. I'm like, no, I was enjoying that. I was watching that. I want more. You can't just have 13 episodes and call it a day. But anyway, but it was, but it was a little bit modern, right? So you had, Tinder references or Grindr references and all these different things where they you'd have all these sort of middle-aged men who are not past their prime, but somewhat, but likely be scoping out like the young waiters and finding out their profiles. And then you had the premise of the show is that the main, and I'm blanking on names, of course, this main character has a argument with his longtime boyfriend because he doesn't ever express himself sexually, and his partner's getting very frustrated. But he ends up getting kicked out of the house and getting fired from his job, and ends up moving into a loft with these like 20-year-olds. And so it's sort of like the old man trying to keep it cool. But it's not like a sitcom, but you have these 20-year-olds who are sort of like living that life and, just going around on a Grindr and all that. But it's sort of it's just interesting thing where he ends up making these, and then his partner, you follow him where he's there's this guy at work and he's trying to find out, is he, isn't he? And it's kind of tragic. I don't want to know if I want to spoil what happens to him. It doesn't end well. But anyway, and so you sort of get that story going on. But like the whole series was interesting, and then you had this sister series, and I've never seen this in TV. And Matt, maybe you're smarter than me that you've seen this before. But so you have Cucumber, which is an hour show. Banana is a 30-minute show. It's a sister show. So what will happen is, you in Banana, which is sort of the secondary show, is sort of like it's almost like you'll just have these random stories every episode. Like we're following this person, and then we're going to follow this person, but you'll see run-ins with the main show for like 5 to 10 minutes. And I've never seen a sister show literally where like,
storylines.
I mean, like I've seen, Buffy and Angel or like even some of the Star Treks, but no, this is like, there's 5 minutes from that scene and you won't know that until you watch the next episode of the full series. But it was interesting because like, Banana, which is like a smaller show, would have like very, very like, because like I said, follow one character and you just get like a whole story from that 30 minutes, that one character. Like one woman, like her ex-boyfriend ends up like posting this like naked video or whatever, like revenge porn, and like it shows her dealing with that, and this like the whole day, like her family comes over and all friends from her, everything, and it's like so interesting. And then like another one will be something else. It was just so cool. It's because you kind of get, Cucumber sort of the older show, quote unquote, Banana sort of the younger show, literally with like more people in their 20s or 30s. But it was so awesome. Like I definitely recommend it for anyone. I mean, I think about the show like every day. I'm like, because it was so hard to find on the BBC. It wasn't in America ever, so I had to like find ways, quote unquote, to watch it. But I it's really show I recommend anyone if you're looking for a good queer show. Like I said, it's Cucumber's the main one, and it's what I like them. But if you're like the younger show, Banana's better. But that's just sort of my thing, because it's sort of set in Manchester, where the original Queer as Folk is set in Manchester. But
right, okay,
yeah. But anyway, that's my little blurb. So, but Joanne, what's another show you'd like to talk about?
Another queer show.
Well, what was the other lesbian show you talked about?
Wentworth Prison.
Yes, I'm not familiar with that.
Yeah, it's a precursor to Orange is the New Black, and I'll admit I haven't like watched the entire series, but it is really enjoyable. I've noticed when British people talk about or have women loving women characters versus in the US, there's a certain more of a comfort level with it. It's like, okay, women love women, get over it. And still in the US, it's kind of like, ooh, look at this. It's got sort of always has a little bit of a pornographic tinge.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. A very like voyeuristic, ooh, look what they're doing. And I mean, the L Word was sort of famous for that, right? Like just the pool scenes and but to be fair, like I used to really like Orange is the New Black. Like I watched that, except for the last 2 seasons, because they had really great female characters, and some of them who were lesbian or bi or just women loving women, and I loved it. It was great. Like Pussy, who now she's in The Handmaid's Tale, like her storyline about being a lesbian while her dad was in the military, and then she's stationed in Germany, and she falls in love, and basically she gets her father kicked out because she's sleeping with like a big deal commanding officer's daughter. That's some good TV. So I'll be frank, I don't think I've really seen like a show like the L Word again, like a real lesbian led show. I found some fun things online too that maybe aren't official series, like The Gay and Wondrous Life of oh gosh, I just forgot, blanked out on his first name, something Gallows, and it's like these 15 to 20 minute vignettes. Let me find the name, and it's like really indicative of like real gay life now. It's quick, it's confusing, it's raucous, it's really good. I'll get the name for you.
Quick and confusing. That sums it all up.
Yeah. Okay, the Gay and Wondrous Life of Caleb Gallo. It's really good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, well, it's funny, and I didn't know this, and I'll admit I don't watch Handmaids, but the creator, and I don't forget her name, I'm sorry, the creator and showrunner of L Word is an executive producer on Handmaid's Tale.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So, okay, what about you, Matt? You got another show up your sleeve?
Yeah, so I mean, like Joanne, I think it's hard to come up with a lot of queer TV because a lot of it, when it was coming out, some of it was reality based. I mean, you had stuff like Queer Eye for the Straight Guy and all that.
Which, by the way, because I was looking that up, because it was funny, I didn't think of that show, and I was talking about a friend. They're like, "Oh, Queer Eye." I was like, "That's queer in the title." I'm like, "Well, I like the show. I love that show. Actually, when it came out, I don't consider that. I mean, I guess representation, but anyway, Netflix apparently is rebooting that.
Oh, really?
Yes,
Okay.
they're going to cast, new people, like the new Fab Five, everything. I mean, I love that show personally, but I guess it's in the name, but I don't know. It was just a fun show. I didn't really think about it. Anything more than candy.
There were, what I was trying to say is the queer TV was mostly on Bravo, and it was mostly reality based, and that really wasn't my thing growing up. So I had to kind of stretch to find more queer TV. So I came up with, shows that have a big queer following. And the show that immediately comes to mind for me, because it's one of my favorite shows, is The Golden Girls.
Thank you for being a friend. Travel down the road and back again. Your heart is true. You're a pal and a confidant. And if you threw a party, you invited everyone you knew, you would see the biggest.
Has long been off the air since 1992, but actually, I don't know if you guys have seen a lot of the episodes of it, but they did deal directly with some gay issues. And for the time that it was being broadcast, which is like mid to late 80s, so you're thinking like Reagan, Bush 1 era, the views that they were putting forth were very progressive for the time. In fact, I still think they're progressive now. Maybe they're not as like bold about it as a show would be now, but there are two things that came to mind for me. There was one episode where they were dealing with lesbianism, in the sense that one of of course you have B. Arthur, Betty White, Rue McClanahan, and Estelle Getty. So one of Dorothy, who's B. Arthur's college friends, was coming to visit her, and she was a lesbian. And, her mom knew this, but her roommates didn't know this. So, you have should we tell them? Should we not tell them? And in the course of her being there, she ends up kind of having a crush on / falling in love with Betty White. And who wouldn't, really? But, the way they handle it, it's very, very grown up. They end up talking about it at the end. And, Betty White's character says something to the effect of, "I may not understand these feelings that you have for me, but I really do. I'm flattered by them, and I hope that we can still be friends." And even they made some of this stuff funny, because McClanahan's character Blanche is very, very self-centered and the sexy one, and always tries to think she's the hottest thing around. So Dorothy ends up finding out that she has a crush on Betty White, and ends up telling Blanche, and the response is, oh, lesbian, ew, it's not that. It's like, to think Jean would prefer Rose over me, that's ridiculous.
Well, I think the show in itself, even that's really good pickup about these gay themed episodes. The show in itself is super gay, because it's like these older women all living together, and in the LGBTQ community, ageism is a big topic. Like Queer as Folk was very, look at these hot bods, the L Word, look at these hot lesbians. A little bit of Sybil Shepherd action there.
That's
with
true.
Lynch, that was some older lesbian love. But let's face it, a lot of these like queer-oriented shows are very young, except for what you mentioned, Cucumber. But the idea that the Golden Girls, they still feel like they're in their prime, but they're older, and so in a way they're outsiders. That theme of outsiders always translates when you're talking about queer and LGBTQ people in shows and different TV shows.
I agree, and I think that what made it at least shockingly progressive for its time, at least for me, is that you had these four women, essentially espousing these very, very forward-thinking ideals, and they're all of a generation where, homosexuality or in any form was considered a psychological issue.
Yep.
So, the fact that it's four older women talking about these progressive thoughts, I thought was very groundbreaking for that time, especially. But it still holds up. I watch the series on a regular basis still.
Tell me if I'm wrong. Didn't they have a gay housekeeper like in the beginning of the series?
They did have a gay housekeeper, but they didn't let him go because they thought it would be a bad idea to have a gay character. Dorothy's mother, Sophia, was never supposed to be a regular character, but when they shot the pilot, she tested so well that they wanted her to be a regular character, and they didn't think they would have the ability to write for 5 people.
Ah, interesting.
But they did have another storyline where Blanche's brother turns out to be gay. And
Oh, I remember that. Yeah.
Blanche is, not only is she self-centered and vain, but she's from the Old South.
Right.
She talks like, Scarlett O'Hara almost. But so she's having to deal with the fact that, she grew up in a very conservative area and having to come to terms with her brother being gay. And they go on an arc, as much as you can go on an arc in a 23-minute sitcom. But again, they do that over a couple of episodes with that storyline, and she ends up coming to terms with it and loving her brother for who he is. And again, for 1987, 90, you didn't see a lot of that, especially from the older generation.
What about and I can't say I watched all that much at the time, but like Designing Women, was the character explicitly or implicitly gay on there?
I never watched a lot of Designing Women, but I know you're talking about Meshach Taylor.
Mm-hmm.
I think he was. If he wasn't, he was extra flamboyant.
Right. So when you said Old South, that triggered that Designing Women.
Designing Women. That was kind of the counter to Golden Girls, but I was always more in the Golden Girls camp.
Right.
Same. Me too.
Well, it's funny because, like you said, reality shows. So, like, I mean, I don't know. I don't watch it, but I'm sure I would if I sat down and watched it. But, you have RuPaul's Drag Race for that, as far as reality base. I don't do anime, but I hear Yuri on Ice is an anime that is very gay-friendly. I'm old and curmudgeonly, so I don't watch such things. But yeah, so let's just kind of wrap up here with sort of the state of queer TV. So it sounds like a lot of what we're saying is that there's not much around anymore. It's to me it sounds silly to say the post-marriage era, but you all know what I mean. Is what shows that show what reality is now. That yes, there's still things that are the struggles, discrimination, all that stuff, but the legal realities at least are somewhat more there, and the recognition is there and representation is there. I don't know. I mean, other than Modern Family. I'm just trying to think of stuff like what we know, how much we have to struggle to figure out what's a modern setting.
I mean, I don't know if you guys will agree with me, but I kind of feel the trend is going that, there were more gay-themed shows back when we didn't have a lot of representation or wasn't a generally accepted lifestyle, quote unquote. I'm using that, just in air quotes. But now that people have gotten more progressive, at least on this issue, instead of having shows entirely centered around it, they'll have characters who are gay that are just part of the normal theme of the show, but they have their own lives and it's treated like no different than the rest of the heterosexual characters. Modern Family being an example. There's the gay couple on How to Get Away with Murder now. Stuff like that, where I feel like it's because there's more acceptance in the mainstream culture. It's not like we have to be front and center and like make it about this because this is a culture that's, I know we're still underrepresented, but like not to the extent that we were 30 years ago.
Like this is gonna be me asking a dumb question. Is logo still a thing?
Yeah, it's still a thing.
And like, what are like other logos? Like I couldn't tell you one show on there.
I mean, neither could I, but it's still a thing, and it exists. It exists, and they do have shows, but like they're also like they rerun Golden Girls and Will and Grace, and
is it going to turn into like BBC America just shows Star Trek reruns for no apparent reason?
Well, I'll tell you. So, like, I hear what you're saying about the more gay people represented in quote unquote mainstream shows. But given what's happening in our culture now, where people are so divisive, LGBT rights are still and always up for grab because freedom never free. You always have to fight for it. We're talking about reboots, right? I would love to see Noah's Ark rebooted. Have you two ever seen Noah's Ark?
I can just see the posters. That's about it.
Oh,
like the guys,
What a great show where basically you had a cast of just men of color who were just living their lives. I almost feel like it's like the perfect blend of Golden Girls and Sex and the City, right? If it's like with men of color, and they talk about HIV/AIDS. They have different levels, like one of the characters lives in an apartment, another one has a really nice house, one's a teacher, one is a professor, and then someone's guys in entertainment, and it's like we need more shows like that to deepen the LGBTQ experience. Like, maybe we don't need another Will and Grace, even though it's being rebooted, but we need to look at different segments of our community that have not been represented fully in the shows we just discussed, and were relegated to the sidelines. Ivan in the L Word was was like genderqueer. I thought it was really freaking hot, but was sort of relegated to the sidelines. And so I think that's what I'd like to see in the state of the queer union here, is shows that deepen our understanding of different people in the LGBTQ community that we have not seen fully represented.
Different facets. Yeah, I agree. I just wanted to say, like, I hope I didn't come across either to the listeners or you guys like I was being dismissive, like, we've arrived now, we don't need our gay shows.
No,
because I think what you're saying, Matt, is kind of like, it's a double-edged sword, not in a bad way, but like, normalization, for lack of a better word, is good. Hey, it's gay characters on here. It's no big deal, right? Yeah. They're there. We're glad we're there, and it doesn't have to be a spotlight. But then, like, I think with Queer as Folk and L Word and all these other shows we're talking about, I think that sense of community, and again, being that 15-year-old from wherever, and you're like, what the hell is going on in my life? And you're like, hey, there's a show that's showing all these things that seem like they're familiar, maybe, and then like, oh God, am I this or that, or and like just shows that do the spectrum, and they're not always successful, but like showing that whole queer life, whatever that, again, however you define that, and it's constantly being redefined, but and then the 21st century take, like, what is the 21st century take on queer life? And I'd be interested to see that dramatized, and so I mean, I think both are important.
Right. I also like the fact that there seems to be more of an effort to get LGBT characters within fictionalized worlds shows as well. Because, I mean, Philip, you and I are big Star Trek fans, and there's going to be the first, regular gay character on Star Trek coming up with Star Trek Discovery. And, I'm really excited about that, and it's groundbreaking for the series, even though it kind of shouldn't be. It's always a progressive series. The fact that it's taken this long, it's kind of.
Next, you're going to say there should be a woman doctor, Matt. Jesus.
Oh my gosh! Nevertheless, she regenerated.
Yes.
I'm looking forward to seeing how they deal with that, and like other major franchises or well-known properties, kind of playing with. Or challenging stereotypes, like you just mentioned. Doctor Who's going to have the first female doctor. It's not necessarily gay per se, but it is doing something different. Mm-hmm. And so, that's not to say that there can't be gay people that show up in something like, I don't know, Star Wars or the Marvel movies, stuff like that.
Well, and this is your area, Matt, but in the next, I believe, 56 Star Wars movies planned, I'm sure there's got to be room somewhere.
Well, I mean, you bring up Doctor Who now that they're going to have a woman being Doctor Who. There was always this sort of chemistry between the companion and Doctor Who. So how will they handle it? If it's a woman, are they going to make them pals high-fiving? Is there going to be sexual tension? So that'll be interesting to see.
I know, because it would have been interesting, our previous companion, ex-companion, I don't know what you want to call it, but Bill, is our first woman of color who was also a lesbian, it was interesting, like, if they ever bring her back, which the door's open. I doubt they will, but the door's open. How will she relate?
They haven't announced who's going to be this person's companion yet. Yeah. It'll be interesting if they keep it female. I wonder if they'll just make it male.
Who knows?
Yeah. The sky's the limit.
Right.
Cool. Well, it's been fun talking about it. We certainly haven't talked about everything, and listeners, we're certainly interested in what you think, what you agree or disagree with what we said, or shows we may have missed and you think we should watch or catch up on, another groundbreaking TV, and maybe shows you think should be rebooted in the future. But Matt, if people want to contact you for all these wonderful things, where can they find you on the interwebs?
They can find me on Twitter. That's usually the best way of getting a hold of me. I am at mhansen0207, Hansen.
And Joanne, if people want to talk to you about all things hot, where can they find you?
I'm omnipresent, so you can find me on Facebook at Look It's Joanne. That's JOANNE, and then Look It's Joanne on Twitter and Instagram.
All right, and folks can talk to me on Twitter as well. I'm at NC Public Servant, and I'll be talking about all those wonderful new gay character in Star Trek on the show I host almost every week, kind of every week, semi every week here on the network, City Alpha 3 with my wonderful co-host, Darren.
You guys feel like it.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, guys, it's been great, and thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Join the revolution. Join the Nerd Party.
Welcome to Nerd Party.